Does looking at your phone first thing in the morning really affect your health that badly? And what about the effects of light and nature on things like cancer and diabetes and traumatic brain injury? Well, if you're curious, you're going to want to stay tuned for this episode. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I have a really awesome guest. Her name is Heathar Shepard. I have had the pleasure of studying under her over the last 6 weeks and meeting her. And I really am excited to share her work with you guys. She actually suffered with a traumatic brain injury herself many years ago, and even though all of her scans were clear, the doctor said she was fine, she continued to struggle with a host of issues, including prediabetes, including weight gain, and all kinds of depression and anxiety. So when she started studying with Dr. Jack Kruse and really understanding his work, it changed her life, as well as the way that she practiced as a nutritional professional. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Nutrition as well as a master's degree, and she is just a host of information on light, nature, health, and homeopathy. So I think you guys are really going to learn quite a bit from her and enjoy this episode. I want to thank the sponsors of today's episode. The first one is going to be Upgraded Formulas. You guys know I am a fan of their hair tissue mineral analysis with a consultation. I do not like just blindly supplementing with things that we do not need. And that consultation with a hair tissue mineral analysis is a perfect way to understand how much magnesium do you need, or do you need any magnesium? How are your sodium and potassium levels? If you just get a blood test, it's a snapshot in time. It's not really what your body is absorbing and using. And if you do not have adequate sodium, potassium, and magnesium, the functions of your body cannot run properly. Your heart cannot beat as smoothly. You just are not going to have as much energy. So use my code YOGI12 over at Upgraded Formulas to save on anything over at their website. The second sponsor of today's show is going to be Optimal Carnivore. I'm a huge fan of their grass-fed organ meat complex, as well as their beef liver supplements. Now you can use my code CARNIVORE to save 10% on any of their products over on Amazon. I love them. I use them every single day. I give them to my family because I believe that nutrition from organ meats is absolutely vital, especially when we are in the winter months. We really need our immune systems to be as strong as possible. So thank you to Optimal Carnivore for sponsoring today's episode. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will talk with you again soon. Have a great day. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming back and tuning into today's episode. I am so excited for today's guest. Heathar Shepard has quite a wonderful story of her own of healing using circadian biology. And she really works with a ton of clients as well, has many years experience working with clients, helping clients to heal through what is called her Sunlight RX program. And she also does some homeopathy as well. So Heathar, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to be here with you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your story and how you got into circadian biology, quantum physics. How did that happen for you?
Really unexpectedly, but it actually started in my early 20s when I got in a bad car accident. And at that time, I was or up until that time in my life, I was an avid athlete. I played basketball in college. I played Division I basketball. Then after that, I went and trained professional athletes. And so I was very much in the athletic world. And so one morning I was driving to work, lost control of my car, just by myself, in the car, solo, lost control, no idea what happened, hit a telephone pole, split it in two, and was knocked unconscious. So I had a pretty bad concussion, TBI, traumatic brain injury, which all the scans, MRI, CAT scan, clear, like you're all good, nothing's wrong, you're cleared, go back to work. And I was like, whoa, I feel horrible. I had migraine headaches, dizziness, vertigo, no energy, brain fog. Literally every time I would take a step, it would send shooting pains into my brain, and I literally couldn't walk because of
Mm.
the effect that that pressure put on my brain and my brainstem. So while all the allopathic physicians were like, "Hey, good to go, go back to work," I was like, "Whoa, I can't even think about walking. I can't even walk, let alone show up and teach an athlete how to sprint or lift weights, etc." So, um, so that took me on this healing quest, and I was like, "Well, let me try Western medicine. Let me try allopathic medicine." And there was actually not even anything to try. It's like they don't have any good solutions, treatment protocols for anybody with a brain injury. They would just said, "Hey, maybe you have a seizure disorder," which I had no seizures, and then they wanted
Mm.
to like put me down this track. And I was like, "Whoa, like that is not what I'm experiencing." And I got very anxious when they told me that, because I was like, "Whoa, do I have this thing that they're telling me I have, but I'm not actually experiencing it?" So I ran as fast as I could in the opposite direction, which took me on this whole other path of getting into holistic medicine. I ended up going to Chinese medicine school, and because acupuncture was literally one of the only things that would bring me some relief. I'm talking
Mm.
short-term relief for maybe a few hours, maybe 24 hours. I would experience some relief, and so I did that, and I was like, maybe this is going to be the thing that helps me recover. And it was supportive in for short periods of time, but it never held, and my symptoms would always come back in a few
Mm.
hours to a few days. So I was really disappointed. I was frustrated. This is 10 years after my car
Oh my
accident.
gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a long time, and at that point I had a lot of anxiety, panic attacks. My gut brain axis was totally wonky from the car accident, and so I was like, okay, this isn't working. Craniosacral,
Mhm.
acupuncture, chiropractic, it wasn't working. And I was like, this is like literally everything that people, are telling me to do. I'm doing everything right, on paper. And so, at the time, I went to Chinese medicine school in Portland, Oregon. Super rainy, cloudy. My
Ugh,
anxiety was
yeah.
really bad there. And so I had this dream one night. It was like Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I was like, I have never thought of Santa Fe, let alone New Mexico, in my entire life. But a few months later, I took a road trip there, and the thing I remember was how sunny it was. It was literally sunny all the time, in winter and summer, and I started to feel better. But I wasn't spending a lot of time outside in the sun because I hadn't made the connection yet. Um, until I came across some work by Dr. Jack, and I was like, huh, okay, maybe there's something to this. And I started to go outside more. I started to watch the sunrise, and literally within 7 to 10 days, I wasn't dizzy. I didn't have migraine headaches. I would always get a migraine headache when I went outside in the sun. I was sleeping better. My digestion was improving. And literally the only thing I was doing was getting more sunlight starting at sunrise. So I just continued on this path. I was like, okay, I'm going to spend time in at sunrise. I'm going to be out there then. I'm going to spend time in all the different sunlight spectrums. And within 8 months, I was almost 100% like free of all the symptoms I was trying to tackle for over a decade. And I was like, holy shit, like, who knew like this free thing in the sky was going to help me make this much improvement in my health? Now, I also added in things like homeopathy because the sun didn't help a lot with the panic attacks,
Mm.
which the homeopathy did. Which is really common after someone has a PTSD event to kind of have these kind of panic episodes that don't make any sense to people who don't experience them. Um, so I started to piece together what's called the Sunlight RX just after my own personal healing experience, because I experienced such dramatic positive health effects just from being in several different sunlight spectrums throughout my day. So that's kind of how it started.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that people don't really realize is that there are different spectrums of the sun, and different times of the day going out is going to do, and they build on one another as well. That's the other thing that I think people don't really understand is like, don't go out in the middle of the day tanning if you didn't wake up and get sunrise, right? Like it's not going to do the same thing for you.
Yeah. I think it's really important because we don't connect that in our brains.
Right.
And I think it's just because we've adopted a more modern lifestyle. We go to jobs, we work, and these jobs are mostly indoors. They're mostly in front of a screen. And so we go outside when we can. And it's like,
Right.
well, that's usually lunch break at noon or something, right? So, but this is actually doing our bodies a real disservice, because that'll set us up for burning. We don't prep the biology, the skin for this innate ability to absorb UVB light in the afternoon. And we really have to prep the skin and the body earlier in the day to be able to achieve this task later in the afternoon when UVB light is present.
Yeah, because UVB light gets the bad rap for everything. And, I see it all the time. It's going to cause skin damage and skin cancer and burn. And if you are properly prepping your body, like you said, starting that hormonal production first thing in the morning, it's a protection against those things, right?
Oh, 100%. It's the body is so ingenious when we put it in the right environment. And we can definitely relate this to the hormones, to the metabolism, to making vitamin D later in the day. But as you mentioned, there's a synchronicity that happens when we're in sunlight in this chronological fashion, so to speak, starting with sunrise. So at sunrise, you go outside, you watch the sun come over the horizon, and the color temperature of the sun at that time is predominantly red and blue light. And this is a really important signal for your endocrine system, because it pauses the release of melatonin, which is, we're hoping, is released at night. And then when we see the sunrise, your body, boom, it's able to make that switch to pause melatonin and go over to this cortisol release that starts when we see the sunrise. And this is exactly what we want. This is when we want our cortisol levels to start to increase. Now, they're not going to be highest at that point, but over time, as you go to sunrise and you go to UVA and then you get to the apex at UVB, that cortisol is going to increase in its release in your bloodstream as the sun moves towards its apex in the sky. And so that's a really important switch that our hormones need to make so we can be productive and we can be energized during our day and we can get things done. We don't have to depend on coffee if we don't want to, at least not like 6 cups to keep us going, and Red Bulls, right? So if we literally work to fix our cortisol release timing, we can improve our energy levels. But not only that, what happens is as the sun moves higher towards its apex, more blue light comes into the solar spectrum. And that blue light actually stimulates more release of cortisol. And as you get more cortisol running through your bloodstream and UVB light shows up, that's like an antidote to sunburns. So if we just go outside at noon and we're like, hey, I'm going to make vitamin D, you're actually not going to make that much vitamin D, especially because you didn't prep your skin with red light at sunrise, because red is also, if you precondition your skin with red light from sunrise, that prevents sunburns. But the thing that we don't talk much about is this importance of blue light in the sky as well, because it increases this cortisol release as the sun goes up to its apex, which counters sunburns. And when we counter sunburns, we tan more, the skin darkens, and we make more vitamin D.
Mm. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
other thing is that I feel most people are looking at blue light when they first wake up, which is their phone. So
Yes.
how is that different than,
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go into that one a little bit, because that is the biggest problem I see with people. When they first wake up, the first thing they grab is the phone. That's the first light going into their eyes. Is that going to make their cortisol like way too high, or like how does that affect that whole symphony of hormones,
Yeah.
if you will?
Such a good question, because there's actually a lot to this. So, probably the worst thing you can do in the morning, first thing, is look at your screen. And then the other thing is to turn on like all the LED lights in your house.
Yeah.
Like, not a good idea because of its effect on your endocrine system and specifically cortisol release. So if you think of the color temperature of sunrise, it's about 1600 Kelvin. And if you think of the temperature of your phone, it's anywhere between 5700, 6000 Kelvin. And so your body immediately detects what time of day it is when, depending on the type of light, the color of the light, meaning the warmth and the temperature of the light that hits your retina. So if you're waking up at 1600 Kelvin with the sunrise, that's where your body needs to start. It can't start at this 5700 Kelvin, like blast with cortisol, because suddenly it's like noon outside. That's the color temperature in the sky at noon. So if you're blasting yourself with quote unquote like noon blue light, that's going to send a mismatch to your body, because it's like, oh, wait, where did this come from? I didn't see anything coming before I got to this point.
Right.
But there's also another thing, which is there's no other color temperature with that blue light. There's no other color present besides blue, maybe a little bit of green, with your iPhone or a screen or your LED.
Yep.
So this is going to create a mismatched state in itself. And this is the biggest effect on the endocrine system in a detrimental way. It's when we look at blue without the other color temperatures present, which causes this blast of cortisol, stress hormone release, and then eventually they just become flatlined. Like if you continue with this pattern to look at your phone, look at your screen without protection, or first thing in the morning or after dark, you're going to flatline your cortisol levels, totally deplete your melatonin levels, and that's a ticket to chronic disease right there that we want to prevent.
Do you think that can also play into a lot of the depression and anxiety that people are experiencing as well? The chronic looking at your phone first and not seeing sunrise?
Man, so much.
Yeah.
Because they get that dopamine hit. They you get first thing, you get the cortisol spike, like boom, it goes way up, when we need it to go kind of like this roller coaster up. We need it to go really gradually, but you get that blast of cortisol, but then you also get this dopamine hit. So it's like your body's already releasing way too many stress hormones first thing in the morning, which we definitely don't want happening when it comes to our hormone health, our metabolic health. It's going to be a train wreck for that.
Yeah, and that's such a hard habit to break. I mean, first of all, the sunrise every morning is a hard thing to talk people into. I feel like you have to just kind of do it yourself, just get out there and force yourself to do it. But once you start doing it, it gets to be just like, I can't live without it. Like last night I was actually having like nightmares that I missed the sunrise. And I woke up and I was like, oh my God, my life is just taking an interesting turn here. Because I always wake up before the sunrise now, but just like a few minutes before, I'm pretty timed to it. But I feel like it really gets to be addicting once you start doing it.
Yeah, I can totally attest to that. First of all, it can be literally like pulling teeth. Like a lot of my clients, it's like pulling teeth to say, hey, go out and watch the sunrise. A lot of people aren't morning people,
Right.
or they're not trained to be morning people, or they don't want to go and do that first thing in the morning. They're just trained to do something else, look at their phone, watch the TV, watch the news, check their email, etc.
Yeah.
And so doing this, it's like we always talk about the health benefits of sunlight and how amazing they are. This is way more than that. This is like a total lifestyle shift. People are not used to living outdoors, and to get more sunlight requires you to literally change your life. So we can use things like indoor lighting and lamps and stuff like that, and sometimes they have a place, but literally people, we've become accustomed to this modern convenience way of living that to go outside and get more sunlight challenges that. And a lot of people don't want to be challenged in that way. They want to be status quo. They just want you to tell them, turn this light on, eat this food, take this supplement.
Yep.
Exactly. And so it can take some time to help people make this shift when they're not, they're just programmed in such a different way. It takes a special person to be able to just go outside and watch the sunrise and commit to that practice. Most people really have to be coached for a long time and have community support, which is why all my clients, I have a private Facebook group.
Yep.
Like most people need support around this in order to, actually do it. So I am not even sure where that question was going that you asked, but I do think it's hard to get people out in the sunrise. But and the addiction, once you start doing it, your brain literally starts to release and produce more of the feel-good hormones. You have serotonin and dopamine being two of the biggest ones. Like literally these stores get replenished, you release more dopamine, more serotonin, which makes you feel good when you're in sunlight, especially UVA sunlight. It releases these neurotransmitters.
Yes.
And so it's exactly what you're talking about. You feel good when you're outside and you want to do it. And once you start your practice and commit to it, even for a week, I tell people, you're going to notice such a difference in your body that you're going to want to do it, because you're literally having these feel-good hormones replenished and released in the proper amounts at the correct times, which is going to make you feel better, like mentally, physically.
Yeah. And it does require support. I mean, that's, for me, I started working with Dr. Hunt back in May, and she was always, doing the live stream during sunrise. And I would listen to her live stream and kind of feel guilty, I'm not doing the sunrise part, and then I just kind of started doing it. And so you have to and started following other people that were doing it. And so I'm kind of the person that has to surround myself with people that are on a journey like I am. And now I have a private membership group, and all the people in there, we're always putting up pictures of our sunrise, and I've got them, walking outside barefoot. So we have the funniest, some of the comments are completely hilarious. Some of them are just cold therapy. And so one of them just bought a cool fat burner vest to try to start that process. And she some of the stuff that we talk about in there, the husbands are the ones that are just what the hell is going on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My husband last night, I had gotten some stuff in the mail. I got a grounding rod. I got a tan through bikini.
Right on.
I got all this stuff, and I was all excited. And he was like, where is this going?
It's where's Sarah? What the fuck did you do with her? What is going on?
He's like, but here's the thing, you're really hot. So, cause I've lost 30 pounds. So he's like, I can't really argue with what you're doing because you're really hot now. So
Yeah, see?
I'm like, yeah, so like, don't just like let me be weird. Let me fly my freak flag. Like
Yeah.
it's all good, you know?
Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome. I think that's a huge thing because when your family and friends see that, like, you've lost weight, you look better, you look younger, you're
Yep.
feeling good, you're in a better mood, it's like, whoa, what the heck? Like, I
Yeah.
want what she has. Like, how did she do that? You
Yeah, and
know?
the other thing that he just mentioned a couple weeks ago, we were out hiking because now we go hiking on the weekends, like it's a family thing, which is new for us. I love it.
Awesome.
He's like, you're smarter. He's like, you're sharper, you're smarter. I don't know how
Ah,
you're doing that, but I'm like, because he's still not sold on coming out to sunrise with me. I'm like,
uh-huh.
it's my lifestyle. There's no
Uh-huh.
supplement that I'm taking that's different. There's no food I'm eating that's different.
Yes.
It is, you know, I am eating my salmon roe a
Right
spoonful
on.
5 days a week, but you know, like it's not some huge complicated thing that people
It's not.
want it. I think they want it to be complicated.
Yeah, no, I agree that they really do want it to be complicated because it makes them feel like they're doing something.
Yep.
And we have this thing in our brain that says if you're not working hard or like sweating to death or like totally exhausted after you do this thing, then it didn't really improve your health at all. And it's just total BS.
Yep.
It's like, I'm sure you know from your own journey.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
from doing the carnivore diet hardcore for 2 years
Uh-huh.
straight and
Uh-huh.
wondering why I wasn't skinny and wondering why I wasn't having all the health miracles everyone else was having. Now, I had a
Yeah.
lot of things that got better for me. Don't get me
Uh-huh.
wrong, but it wasn't what everyone said it was going to be. And that
Yeah.
was like, and I just got off the phone with a client who he's been trying to do OMAD and every other day fasting and carnivore, and his diabetes is getting worse and he's feeling
Uh,
worse and his cortisol
uh,
and melatonin signaling
uh.
is worse. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Because this is not where you need to be focused right now. Like
Yeah.
we need to step away from this, stop the fasting, first of all, but
Yeah.
we need to go elsewhere with where you're putting emphasis on what you do with your time. And it's going to be less and less with the food right now.
Good. Yeah. That's awesome. Good
Yeah.
message for him. That's so great.
Yeah.
Love it.
And you work
Very
with
good.
a lot of people that so those of you guys who are watching, I'm doing a course right now to be certified so I can be awesome like Heather. And
Aw.
and she's one of the teachers in the course, and she taught last night an amazing, it was almost a 2 hour long lecture that I was like just typing the whole time, taking notes the whole time. But that's one of the things that you mentioned in your Sunlight RX program, is that you work with people that really struggle with diabetes, right?
Oh yeah, I work with a lot of people who have diabetes. That one's kind of close to the bone because a lot of my family just struggle with weight and obesity. And after I had my brain injury, I went from a super athletic person to now I was like, what? Why am I so flabby and why am I getting bigger? And
Mhm.
I thought it was my diet, but literally my brain wasn't getting the fuel and the light it needed it to heal. And today I do work with a lot of people who have diabetes, specifically type 2.
Mhm.
I work with some type 1s, but that's a little, there's some things you can do depending on the stage of their type 1 and how quickly you can catch it. That's a tough one though. That needs a lot of other intervention homeopathically and with the sunlight and diet. But I mainly work regarding diabetes with people who have type 2 diabetes. And there's been a really interesting study. Maybe you're familiar with it. I think it came out a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago. But linking, um, they basically put all these people in a room with only blue light. I
Oh,
think there was
wow.
like TVs, there was LEDs, and literally ate the same thing they were eating before they did this experiment. And the rate of their glucose levels being elevated, moving them towards a type 2 diabetic state, blew through the roof, like
Oh, wow.
astronomically during this study. And so I think the biggest thing here, because a lot of people and not everyone who has type 2 diabetes is obese. Some people are actually like underweight and they still have type 2 diabetes. So it's not always a weight thing, and it's also not always like they eat too much and they exercise too little. Like that's not always the case.
Right.
But what I found is that and maybe you found this too, but the people who have the most advanced states of type 2 diabetes, they rarely see the sun.
Yeah.
And they've worked an indoor life job for years, and they love watching TV, especially at night. You know, big screen, all that blue light blasting them. And we haven't made this connection yet on a mainstream level, linking artificial light to things like type 2 diabetes and weight struggles. And it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So, yeah, this is a big area of health that if we can improve these people's light environment, because UVB light also depletes glucose from the liver.
Yes.
So if we can work up their sunlight RX, you know, sunrise, UVA, and then they get to UVB and they've primed their skin and their gene clocks to accept the sunlight, the UVB, man, they're going to be in such a better place if they can commit to that practice for sure.
Yeah. I think it's so hard for people though, because like we were just talking about, they really want to just go straight into the supplements and the food, and they don't want to give up the TV. They don't want to give up the phone. They don't want to give up the artificial light sources. And I think it's just like hard for them to buy into like, hey, if I go walking barefoot, you know, at these specific times of day, that this is going to actually help me. So how do you kind of get people to make that jump to actually
Oh, that's a good question. And it actually might not be like it's not actually circadian biology related, so to speak. That's more when homeopathy comes into play, because a lot of people, homeopathy doesn't just focus on symptoms. It's like, what's their personality like? Are they stubborn? Are they shut down emotionally? Are they like have a super hyper sex drive? Like, what's their personality like? Because are they lazy? Are they literally don't have any energy to get out and see the sunrise? You know, can they literally not get off their ass and do it? Like that could be the case. Like,
I think it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, like they literally might not be able to do that. And a lot of people in the circadian biology world are like, just get out there and do it. And some people can, but honestly, some people literally can't do that. And so this is where I found the homeopathy to be helpful, because it can help address some of these stuck patterns in the constitution, in the personality, that prevents them from some imbalance in their mental emotional state and their physical body from literally moving forward with things, or thinking it's not important, or being addicted to work so they can't go out and do it. You know, it's really individual, but that's honestly one way that I've been able to approach this subject with greater efficacy than, hey, just go do it, because most people, honestly, it'll be like pulling teeth for them to just go do that. So, you know, I found that there can just be some blocks in the Constitution for, you know, many different reasons, whether it's some programming they had, whether it's like literally a genetic thing they don't have, like their mom was stubborn and their grandmother was, you know, stubborn. And these things can, if they're passed through the generations without being addressed, they can become more intense, especially the more we live indoor lifestyles, but also the more we do suppressive therapies like antibiotics, like prescription drugs, like vaccines. The more we suppress our immune system, the more we not only suppress our physical body, but also the mental, emotional as well. And so there can be these blocks around the mental, emotional state for reasons very individual to the person. And so I feel like addressing those is exceptionally helpful for helping somebody to move forward with some of these things if they're feeling stuck.
So what does that look like exactly? I know it's different for every person, but just in a general sense.
So, it's so specific. So let me see if I can think of an example here with a client. So let's say somebody doesn't want to go, they know they have to go out and see the sunrise. They like know it. They know the information. They know how good it is for them. They've read all about it. They've done everything to linearly learn the information, but they can't do it because they're addicted to work. Like they wake up and they're like, that should be good, but I have to send this email and I have to, do X, Y, and Z for work, like first thing in the morning. So, used to be me.
Yeah.
That literally used to be me. Like, I don't have time for these things. I got to work first. And then I could like weave in a little bit of self-care. So let's say you have somebody like that and they literally, they need to get their work done. They're really, focused on that versus prioritizing themselves and their self-care. So, the homeopathy, for people who are unfamiliar with this topic, there's literally like thousands of remedies, different remedies. One of the most common one that maybe many of you or your listeners have heard of is arnica. If you get a bruise, you get a head injury. This was really helpful for my head injury. You take a really high dose of arnica, 1 dose of arnica, high dose, and dramatic impacts for anybody with a head injury or hemorrhagic stroke. Awesome for those conditions. Okay. So literally, like arnica, there's 1,000 different remedies.
I used to use it when I was in yoga teacher training, and I would train all weekend. I like had to rub my body down with arnica. That was and then I'd get up the next day and I could go back to, 10 hours of training again and I'd be fine.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's awesome. Arnica can be really great for those sort of things, for sure. So there's literally like thousands of different remedies. And so when somebody comes into my practice, and let's just take this example of the workaholic who can't get outside because, they're addicted to their work, there's also going to be other symptoms that tie in with this person. So you have like this mental, emotional picture with the addiction to work. Maybe they're also addicted to stimulants like alcohol, like maybe drugs, maybe recreational drugs, maybe marijuana. But then they also have this physical picture, like maybe they have IBS, or maybe they're have anger issues, or maybe they are so addicted to their work that they wake up, on and off throughout the night, like just they can't shut their mind off about it. And so this creates a picture of where this person is when they walk into the practice and they tell you this story. And then you get this picture of, okay, what remedy aligns with what they're telling me? And if we can match the remedy to the symptoms that they're presenting, then we can help them break through these mental, emotional, and physical blocks to healing, where then they can start to make choices about their health and lifestyle that they've been wanting to do, but literally have been blocked from doing. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but okay.
Yeah. So you would basically find something like arnica or some sort of an herbal remedy that would go along with what you're trying to have them to do.
Really, really good distinction here, that homeopathic remedies are not herbal remedies. They're literally like these substances that are micro diluted. So, and there's only you only use one of them at a time. A lot of people use combination remedies, etc. That's not an effective practice. But if you can pinpoint the one remedy, like say this person I'm talking about with the overwork, the anger issues, the IBS, the ineffectual urging for stool, like they think they have to go, but then they can't go when they go for a stool, like etc. This is like a classic like nux vomica case, and that is like this substance that's micro diluted. The person takes this, and then this works on, this is like basically the biggest quantum medicine that we have available to us is homeopathy, because it's, some of these things are like, quote unquote, if you took them on a huge dose, you could get poisoning, toxicity.
Oh, wow.
Remedies like mercury, remedies like
Right.
arsenicum album, remedies like sulfur, like phosphorus. You take these in a mega dose, you could die.
Oh,
You
yeah.
take these in micro doses where the substance isn't even in the remedy, but just the energy of the substance is there. It heals the things that it causes in an overdose situation. So like arsenicum album, you overdose on that, you're going to vomit, you're going to have diarrhea, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be freezing, you're going to be shivering. But if a patient comes to you with those symptoms, diarrhea, vomiting, shivering, underweight, you give them arsenicum album, it heals those symptoms that it causes in a mega dose.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they're not herbal remedies, so to speak, but they're homeopathic remedies, which are micro dilutions of a certain substance.
Got it. The whole, I guess, circadian biology thing, I think is just so foreign to people. Like I was saying earlier, I think that they just are so skeptical that they don't actually think it's going to work. But what kind of results do you see with people who actually do buy into it and actually do the work? That's what I'm really interested in.
Very good results. Very good results. I will say that the clients who I have who commit to their Sunlight RX practice do far better. What I mean by, they achieve whatever health goal they came in to achieve when they reached out. They have far better successes in getting there, and getting there in a shorter period of time, if and when they commit to a daily Sunlight RX practice. So, I mean, it's literally, it's night and day, the difference between the people who can commit to it and the people who they're just not there yet, or they don't want to. So, as a way to try to set people up for better successes with this, because that's why I work with people. I want them to succeed with their health. I don't want them to just, hey, pay me money and then good luck. It's like, no, I actually want to see you get better, because your quality of life is going to get better. So now when people sign up to work with me, they automatically get a homeopathic, the homeopathy is automatically weaved into that, because so many people, they struggle with the sunlight part and the circadian biology part. So I'm like, how can I better set them up for success? We have to like kill two birds with one stone, basically. And I basically kill three birds with one stone. So I'm like, they get homeopathy, they get diet, and they get circadian biology when they come, so they can best be set up for success with whatever they came to me to heal and to work on. And I'll give you an example, because this is actually what helped me make that change from just, hey, just circadian biology work, to adding in like these other pieces have to be included as well. Because I had this client who came to me with C. diff, which I put a YouTube video up years ago about C. diff and how to approach it. I cannot tell you how many people reach out to me with C. diff. Wow. Who've tried antibiotics that make C. diff worse.
Yeah.
Worse, so much worse.
I've seen it.
So much worse. They reach out to me. We do circadian biology and homeopathy, and it's like amazing. It's very effective. But I had this client come to me once and he had C. diff and he was a night shift worker. Okay.
Oh, those
And
are the hardest, I'm sure.
very hard, but he had quit his night shift job,
Mm.
and which was really, really great. But he was also dealing with C. diff at this time. He quit his night shift job. So he had years of being in this. Basically, he was sleeping during the day and awake at night. And he got C. diff, which C. diff is related to a lot of things, but one is definitely a disharmony in one's circadian biology. So he came to me and I gave him, this is back in the day, I gave him diet and supplements because that's basically what I focused on then. And the C. diff went away, but his gut microbiome, there were other areas that literally were very stubborn and they wouldn't improve. His streptococcus remained high, his beneficial bacteria levels remained low.
This is on like a GI map, right?
Yeah, that's a GI map. Yeah. So, so I said, hey, look, you're doing awesome. You did great with removing the C. diff. Awesome. And now in order to like make these bigger strides with your gut health and your overall health, and he ate a totally carnivore diet. He was 100% carnivore. I was like, we have to get your body detecting night from day. He would scroll his phone at night, even though he wasn't a night shift worker, because he was just used to being up at that time. And his gut microbiome wouldn't change. And so I said, hey, we really need to make this shift. Your diet's perfect. We don't even have anything to do with diet. Your supplement schedule is like minimal and good. And, those things, you're doing it. You're exercising. Awesome. But he didn't have any energy. His cortisol release was all messed up. His melatonin release all messed up. And I said, if you can't add in the circadian biology piece, like we can't make that progress.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It didn't work, and it didn't work.
Oh,
and
wow.
This person didn't get better, and he actually couldn't do homeopathy because he was addicted to drinking coffee, and it's like coffee and cannabis. Any coffee and cannabis substance will antidote the remedy.
Really?
Yes. So if you take a remedy and let's say a day later or a week later, or even 6 months later, you do coffee or cannabis, and then suddenly your symptoms start to gradually come back in. So you need to avoid those substances for quite a long period of time, because that remedy will act on you for literally months to years at a time.
Wow.
So he couldn't do it. He couldn't give up the coffee because he needed something to get him going in the morning, and he couldn't wake up to see sunrise because he was used to being on his phone at night and didn't go to sleep till 2 or 3 a.m. And so some clients, you can take them so far.
Yeah.
But there's, so sometimes there's some blocks, but this is why I just started including all three of these things into one to better set people up for success, specifically from that client, because man, he did everything right on paper, but we couldn't get him the sunrise and we couldn't get him the remedy because of his coffee addiction. So, but if we could fix the circadian biology, then he wouldn't be addicted to coffee anymore.
Right.
Most likely.
I was a huge coffee addict up until February of this year. I decided I was cutting coffee out, and I've stayed off of it and haven't needed it because I don't want it anymore. Like now that I have sunrise every day, I'm like, I don't even need it. Like I'm like zipping around, like getting stuff done, full of energy every morning. And I used to just drag my ass to the coffee maker every single morning. That was the first thing I did. I'm like, oh, I can't do anything until I make the coffee and drink like 2 cups, and then I could start my day. Yeah. But now, I mean, I can't. Like a year ago, if I had seen myself say this, I would be like, hell no, I'm never giving up coffee. No way. Yeah. But now I have no desire. It's like it kind of repels me a little bit to think about it. Just it's weird how that works. I love the taste. I love now I'm like, don't want it. Don't want
you got your circadian biology back on point, especially your cortisol release. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
That's awesome.
There is hope, guys. If you you don't have to be a slave to the coffee. I know it's scary, but You know, for me, and I don't know if you have any insight on this, but when I quit coffee, it was in February. I was not doing the sunrise yet. I didn't really start doing that till like late May, probably of this year. I went through a depression phase when I
Oh,
quit
yeah.
coffee. And I was just talking with a client today that he was like, I want to quit coffee, but I can't deal with the depression that comes
Yes.
along with giving up the coffee. And I was like, well, you got to do the sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, I think that
Yeah.
doing that is going to help to buffer some of that depression. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
It definitely will help to buffer it. It will definitely, because see, this is a really interesting thing, because when we remove all the stimulants from the diet or the body, whether it's coffee or Red Bulls or other, you know, cocaine, whatever it is, when we remove all the stimulants from the body, then we get to see a picture of the real symptoms that are going on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I ask them, hey, are you constipated? They're like, no, I take 800 milligrams of magnesium every night. And I'm like, that is a Band-Aid. And you take the magnesium away, they're still constipated. So it's like, you take the coffee away, and then we get to see what's actually going on in the organism. We can actually see a clear picture. So this person, I would guess, had maybe struggled with depression before the coffee.
Oh yeah,
and like,
that what yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So then we get to see this clear picture that the coffee was masking, so to
it.
speak. Yeah. So we go out and we can do the sunrise and get that dopamine restored, which is low in everyone who's depressed, right?
Yeah.
But there's also likely some mental emotional things in there around the depression, because it sounds like it's probably been there for a while. And I see this like so often, like coffee, you know, then this will mask energy levels. It'll mask depression. It'll mask digestive health. And then you have things like melatonin, which will mask how well you're actually sleeping. You know, there's so many things out there now that people take and do because they're quote unquote known to be good, healthy things that actually really mask what's really going on.
Yep.
You know? Wow. Yeah. So when we take away stimulants and we take away a lot of the supplements, we can actually get a clear picture of what's going on. And that's when we can actually approach it in a proactive way.
Wow.
Because somebody comes in your practice and like, are you constipated? No, I'm not, but I take fiber, I take magnesium at night, I take Epsom salt baths 5 times a week. It's like, oh, you're constipated. Like, you take those away, then we're going to see a clear picture, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got to go plug you in.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. I think that's a big one though. I think that's a big one around depression, because constipation, depression, sleep, such a huge one with sleep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the amount of people that are taking melatonin to fall asleep is, that's one I really have a hard time getting people to stop the melatonin, because I'm like, you're literally just making things worse when you're doing that.
You really are. And melatonin's really an interesting one, because the body is able to make it and recycle its melatonin levels in UVA light. It's like the second sun spectrum that shows up in the sky right around 8 to 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that'll depend on the season. That'll fluctuate. It'll depend on the season and your location and all of that. But you're able to recycle your melatonin stores in UVA light for people who go outside. Now, if you don't go outside, that's going to be an issue, and you're going to need to depend on melatonin at night in order to sleep, you know? So that also, you know, also really masks what's really going on. Like, are you looking at artificial light at night?
Yeah.
And taking your melatonin supplement? Because that's like a big no-no when it comes to really getting to the horcrux of what's going on with your melatonin release.
Yeah.
So if we can make the environment literally dark at night after sunset, or at least put on your red blue blockers, you're going to preserve your melatonin levels that hopefully you were able to restore a little bit in AM sunlight.
Yeah.
But taking the melatonin supplement, man, I've seen it actually is a train wreck for the circadian biology for many reasons. But one is that these people tend to who take melatonin need to rely on higher and higher and higher
Yeah.
dosages as they go.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they can't wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
They're so tired from overdosing on melatonin. And I see the same thing with cannabis products. It's like, be so awesome. And I'm like, I think that's actually a train wreck for circadian biology, because we get to this point where we need more and more and more in order to achieve the result. And then people can't wake up in the morning. They're groggy. They don't want to get up and see the sunrise because they need to sleep, because they've overdosed on these things in order to sleep. So yeah, it can mask so many things for sure.
Yeah.
Melatonin's such a, man, try telling somebody to get off melatonin supplements is like trying to tell somebody to quit smoking.
It really is. I've always been lucky that melatonin just gives me like the literal worst nightmares in the world. I've never been able to take it because the nightmares are so horrific that I'm just like, no, I don't want anything to do with melatonin. Keep it away from me.
Yes. Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I really wanted to talk to you about is diet, because you talked a little bit, the Sunlight RX, you do the homeopathy, and then how do you approach diet with people in your overall healing program?
That's a good question. It's a little bit outside of the box than what the mainstream does, but it's not so much with regard to our ancient ancestors. It's basically exactly how they approach their diet. Or pretty similar. Of course, we're modern day. There's going to be some, ways we have to modify, but a lot of people are big into like ketogenic diet, stay in ketosis, a paleo diet. And it's like, before we jump on board with any of these things, let's assess like if they're actually these natural occurrences in nature. So I take the example of, I grew up in upstate New York. So sometimes that just comes into my mind. I say, hey, upstate New York, would these people be eating a ketogenic diet in August or July? No, they're not going to be eating that. They're not going to be eating a ketogenic diet at that time of year, because there's berries, there's fall harvest, there's squashes, there's apples, there's all of these things that contain carbohydrates that they're going to eat at that time of year. And actually, if they didn't, they would be set up for issues if they get into winter, meaning a lot of these people put on more weight at that time of year.
Yeah.
And then the winter came, food was scarce. They literally didn't have as much food to eat. They were naturally in a more, I don't know if they were in a ketogenic state, because they ate a lot of protein, they ate some fat. I'm not a huge fan of a high fat diet, because most people eat the wrong kinds of fats, and most modern people, their liver and gallbladder can't actually handle that amount of fat because of all the toxins and suppressive therapies we've been exposed to. Now, there could be somebody who could tolerate it better than others, but I found most people, they hit a wall with these like hardcore diets. Because they're not sustainable, and they're not actually in sync with nature. So my diet approach really is based on where somebody lives, how much sunlight they get, are spending a lot of time indoors. If somebody's looking at a screen for more of the day than somebody else, I'm going to recommend a lot more like seafood in their diet than somebody who goes outside more. So it really depends on location, but I think the biggest thing to take into consideration is that we're not eating carbohydrates at a time when carbohydrates cannot grow outside.
Right. When they're scarce. Yeah.
When they're scarce. It's like, of course, we're going to get some of these into late fall and early winter with the fall harvest, where some of these root vegetables and squashes and etc. can have a pretty long shelf life, but those things are going to get more scarce throughout the winter. We have no idea what that even means because of the grocery store,
Yep.
And not that we have to deprive ourselves, but in those situations, then what we want to do is limit our carbohydrates more when UVB light goes away, and focus more on protein and focus less on carbohydrates, and definitely less on fruits. So I'm very big on animal protein, on healthy animal fats. I'm very all of my clients, I tell them to avoid anything that's a liquid oil, with the exception of a high quality olive oil. And the reason being is because these are highly processed, and light totally causes them to be more toxic. It changes their structure. And I had a client once come to me with cancer of the small intestine. I work with a lot of people who have cancer also. She had a naturopath put her on a ketogenic diet that was vegan. So she was eating many vegetable oils. So many, and these are even things like macadamia nut, almond, avocado oil. We've thought that these things are good ideas, but our ancient ancestors never, ever ate avocado oil or almond oil. It's like, it didn't even exist. So, and because they don't have any saturated fat in them or cholesterol, their shelf life is going to be highly unstable. So anyway, this person came to me and she was on this diet for like 6 months, and the cancer had, what happened is she developed a spot on her liver that started to grow. And I was like, we have to stop these oils like immediately and replace it with butter, replace it with tallows, but mainly I'm a big fan of butter. So she did that one thing and the spot on her liver went away.
Wow.
So I think these oils are like, really important to avoid in the diet. And, and eating a seasonal diet is really important, and focusing on quality protein, quality fats, is super important. I don't know how much you want to go into detail, but I think that is like baseline, a really good place to start. But another thing is that I think a lot of people are into fasting today and intermittent fasting. However, because people's hormones and metabolism is so out of whack, we have to structure the fasting in a way that doesn't cause those hormones to go out of whack even more. So like bulletproof coffee was like one of the worst inventions for our cortisol levels and circadian biology. It's like total train wreck.
Yep. Yeah, the amount of women that I've talked to that message me that have lost their periods because they're doing carnivore and fasting is, and I was one of them too. That's what made me dive down the rabbit hole of, how to fast properly and if someone should even fast. I fast now, but I am very strategic about it. Like I will never fast during ovulation. I will never fast during the week before my cycle. I will never fast if I've had a bad night of sleep, if I've had trouble sleeping. There's just like a big checklist that I go through of whether or not I'm going to fast. And I am not fasting a bajillion times more than I am fasting, but it's so trendy right now. And it's like such a cure-all for everything. And it's like, people really need to be careful with it, I think.
Agree, especially women, because it can really mess up the hormone. Men have a little bit more leeway because they can't carry a baby.
Right.
They have totally different hormonal requirements and needs. Women, especially menstruating women, and I would highly caution against fasting, especially there's certain times of the day when it's, can be more a better idea than others. But I never suggest to any of my clients to skip breakfast.
Yeah. That's the one thing I have a hard time convincing people of is that they should try to eat a big, nice protein meal within 30 minutes or an hour sunrise.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of them are leptin resistant and have no idea their leptin is sky high. And it's
Right.
like, if you're leptin, if you're not leptin sensitive, you should not be skipping breakfast. You're literally making things worse. But the trend is to like not eat all day until 3 o'clock. You know, if I have people
Oh,
fast, I'm like, eat a breakfast, eat a lunch, then fast, you know,
yeah.
until the next morning at breakfast, if you want to do it.
Yeah.
That could be too stressful for a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that's, I don't think, being had enough.
I agree with you. I think it's so important, and I'm so glad to hear someone else who is on board with that. We're definitely in the minority here,
Yeah.
but I have seen, because I work with a lot of cancer patients, and intermittent fasting is absolutely huge for them. All naturopaths, all functional medicine
Yeah.
doctors, intermittent fast, skip breakfast, fast through lunch, maybe eat a big dinner. These people's cortisol levels, their melatonin levels, their release patterns is a total train wreck. And if we continue to fast through the whole day like that or skip breakfast, it's going to continue to support that train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Eating meals at certain times of the day is one way to also support your circadian biology. And I'm right on board with you that starting with a really good high protein breakfast is super, super important for hormone and metabolic health, like 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And so I love that you're not really like married to, you have to do a specific type of diet, and it's more individualized based on where the person lives. Like there's a doctor that was pretty big in the carnivore community, and now he's kind of gone and moved to Costa Rica, and he's eating all this fruit and stuff, and people are getting really pissed off and they're getting really confused. And I'm like, well, the dude lives in Costa Rica and surfs all day.
Yes.
He can eat fruit. Come on, people. Like
You can,
it's not just like fruit is bad, you know. He lives under the sun all freaking day, surfing in the ocean, getting all
yeah.
of that charge from the sand and the water. Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it. Eat the freaking mangoes and coconuts and whatever the hell you want to have. But if you live in, you know, upstate New York and it's
Yeah.
December, you don't need
Yeah.
to be going anywhere near bananas or grapes or any of that stuff. Like it's not
Yeah.
just as like simple as this diet, and
Not.
it's there's so much more nuance to it.
There is. And that, I think it goes back to like that people are really wanting you to just tell them what to do. They want
Yes.
thing. They don't want to think outside of the box, or it's too much of a challenge, or like it's too much of a hassle for some
Mm-hmm.
people to change their lives in this way. And so I think it's really important then working with people to tell them why you're doing it, like why
Yes.
suggesting this. Like if you eat a banana in January in upstate New York, you're going to become more inflamed and set yourself up for type 2 diabetes because you don't have UVB light to deplete the glucose and deuterium
Yes.
from. But dudes doing surfing down in Costa Rica, like eating plantains and bananas and mangoes or whatever, he's able to deplete those things from his body and not have negative side effects. And we don't make this connection between sunlight and diet, but freaking
Mm-mm.
sunlight grows your food. So,
Right. Food
you
is
know,
light, you
yeah,
know, it's just another spectrum of light, and people just want to think of it as this black and white thing. But
yeah,
without the light, there is
yeah.
no food. You know,
That's
we
it.
just live in this modern world where we can have everything shipped to us. And
Yeah,
that's not necessarily a good thing.
exactly. Yeah. And I think it's a big one, because not everybody eats like a carnivore diet.
Right.
Not even our ancient ancestors. I just
Mm-mm.
read this book on a tribe it was an anthropology book on this tribe in South America somewhere, and their main staple in their diet was plantains.
Wow.
And nobody was overweight. They mainly ate plantains. They went in the stream and fished for fish during the season. Sometimes they would hunt, wild game, but they literally mostly lived on plantains. Nobody was overweight. They like lived outside and basically nothing. And there was no health issues like reported throughout the entire book of these people.
Wow.
Yeah, so we really have to take our environment, sunlight into consideration before just jumping on board to a diet that a naturopath recommends, or somebody, who's
Or you
famous.
see on the internet. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. You can Google anything, right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of people have found me because of the carnivore diet. That's how
yeah,
my channel grew. That's how I got to be where I am. But there's an evolution to it. There's
exactly.
a place where I spoke out one day and was like, this is not
Yeah,
everything everyone says it is. I still think it's great therapeutically in specific times. I am carnivore still, but
yeah,
it's not the cure all. Like you were saying last night on your presentation, diet is 33%, right, of
yeah,
our overall healing journey. And that was like, it made so much sense to me because people are only doing that one little part and
yeah,
expecting, the other percentage to work out. And it's just not
right.
enough to just concentrate on that one thing.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. But we're taught that, and then people get really frustrated with,
Mm-hmm.
their health, and so then they'll try a different diet and a different
Mm-hmm.
supplement, and a different naturopath or a different functional, doc, and
Yep.
with the same result.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's really, really huge, to address these things for sure.
Yeah.
Full spectrum. We need the circadian biology, diet. I do homeopathy, and I found it to be a really, really effective combination.
Awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
feel like I could definitely talk to you for at least another hour about
Yeah,
this stuff, but I feel like we've given people a good taste of you, what you do. You have a
yeah,
podcast, you have an Instagram, you have Facebook page where you educate people. How can
yeah.
people find you and participate and learn from you?
Okay, so yeah, if you want to learn more, you can connect on Instagram at sunlight_RX.
Okay.
Uh, you can find me online at heatharshepard.com, and my name is spelled, with an AR at the end. heatharshepard.com. And I actually am just launching this January a holistic health coaching certification. It's a 12-month program where I
Oh,
teach
wow.
people circadian biology, diet, and homeopathy, um, in order for them to work with their clients and weave this model into working with their clients to help their clients have better health outcomes. So we get into the science of that, we get into diet, and we get into how to work with specific cases like cancer, like diabetes, etc., and how to actually approach these cases. So I'm really psyched because this is the first year I'm offering the certification program. It starts in January. If this podcast is out before then,
It will be.
you all can find more about that at holistichealthcoachcertification.com. And yeah, I'm really pumped about that because I'm wanting to teach this more to other people because I can only reach a certain amount of people and feel like people are benefiting so much that I want other holistic health practitioners to be able to help their clients in impactful ways as well. So I'm stoked about that.
It's awesome. Well, it's
Yeah.
exciting, and I will definitely put all those links in the show notes so people
Cool.
can find you and learn from you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh yeah, Sarah was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
thanks for having
right. You're
me. Okay.
welcome.